The BOI is off again. My name is Paul Vasquez with Tax Lab. We help taxpayers save tens of thousands of dollars in taxes, penalties, and open up other wealth generating opportunities for you. So, in another quick turnaround, the BOI once on, then off, then on, then off, then on, and now off again. More news has hit to help ease some of your tensions and increase your confusion. As part of the Corporate Transparency Act, the IRS and their Division of Federal Crimes Investigation Network instituted a requirement that all businesses operating in the U.S. needed to report their beneficial owners as in efforts to be able to better manage and track bad actors, whether that's money laundering, human trafficking, terrorist activities. So they were trying to crack down on these actors using our financial systems to do their evil deeds. That's the official word that they gave us. However, most of this had required that people report if they had registered at the state level, and so the states already pretty much have this information. And so you're just basically saying, am I registered at the state? If I am, I need to report it to the federal bureau. And why can't they have just gone directly to the state? Because there's rules against illegal search and seizure. So they came up with a new rule that possibly overcame that issue. So there's a lot of back and forth on this. And so that's why you had so much back and forth as different people were suing, saying this isn't right to do to U.S. citizens. So just 2 days ago, March 2nd, the United States Treasury. So you want to kind of separate out the agencies. You have the IRS and their crime bureau network, and then you have the Treasury. So if you go, we'll swap the camera. If you go to the FinCEN website, they're still saying that this is in effect, right? That the new deadline, March 21st, is still in effect. So they're saying, yes, file this. If you don't, we're gonna have the Treasury collect a penalty on you. And so now what's going on is the Treasury, if you're able to see this, that's up there, that is home.treasury.gov, news press release SB 0038. So if you see here in big, this is from the government. So you've got one government agency saying, you still are required to do this. If you don't, we're going to send you fines. The person who the agency that collects the fines is the Treasury Department. And they announced 2 days ago a suspension on the enforcement of the Corporate Transparency Act against U.S. citizens and domestic reporting companies. Okay, so for the majority of the people, this means that there's no penalty that's going to be enforced against you if you are a U.S. citizen and a domestic reporting company or a domestic reporting company. And let's just read through this real quick. It says the Treasury Department is announcing today, with respect to the Corporate Transparency Act, not only will it not enforce any penalties or fines associated with the beneficial ownership information reporting rule under the existing regulatory deadlines, but it will further not enforce any penalties or fines against U.S. citizens or domestic reporting companies or their beneficial owners after the forthcoming rule change takes effect either. After the forthcoming rule changes take effect either. Okay. So, will not enforce any penalties and fines associated with the beneficial ownership rule, but further will not enforce penalties against U.S. and domestic. So it's not going to enforce any penalties, especially against U.S. citizens and domestic reporting companies. So it comes down to that the majority of business owners are not going to have to worry about the BOI. They're going to rewrite the rule. I guess they're going to try to get the rule rewritten so it's just enforceable against foreign companies. So you might think, okay, great, I've got nothing to do. And for the majority of you, that's going to be the case. However, there are a few cases where you may still need to file. And that's if you are not a permanent resident of the U.S. So let's say you're not a citizen and you're not a permanent resident, but you still have, let's say, legal status to operate a business in the U.S. And so sometimes what you'll end up doing if you are legally allowed to operate a business in the U.S., but you're not a U.S. citizen, then you may have ended up registering your business as a foreign reporting company. And so that would be, let's say, your family's been in the States for a while and you're allowed to work here. You've registered at the state level, your LLC and S Corp. Depending on the state, they allow you to have residency. You might be a state resident, right? So federal rules of residency and state rules of residency differ. And so you could still be considered a resident of a state that you're living in without being a resident of the country as a whole. And so in that case, this BOI may still apply to you. So you'll still want to make sure that you file this beneficial owner report before the March 21st deadline, or else this could still be enforced against you. So that would be the only people who you would still need to worry about enforcement. Once again, if you are legally working in the U.S. and you are a state resident, but for some reason you haven't yet become a full U.S. citizen or legal residency status on the federal level, and you're operating a business in the U.S., then you'll still want to register for the BOI. So that really narrows the scope of how many people need to worry about this. But that is the most recent news that the majority of you aren't going to have to worry about filing the BOI. It is off again. So one agency is saying it's still on. The enforcement part of it is saying it's off. We saw something similar with the health insurance, right? Remember, we saw that with the health insurance where one agency was saying you still have to do this, and the enforcement agency was saying we're not going to enforce it. We're the citizens here. We're not saying make it make